So, as a lot of you have probably been noticing over the past, I would guess you could say a couple of months, maybe past year or so, or whatever, I've been doing some unique reviews. And these reviews are basically where I talk about certain fictional stories, webcomics that you can find at places like DeviantArt, Patreon.com if you're a Patreon there, or for Fanfiction, or Ink Bunny, or wherever, or Fanfiction.net, you name it. But lately, again, as you've noticed, I've talked more about stories that go by different names, different scenarios. Some that people would consider kind of like, okay, what's the thrill of it? What's the big deal? And I know I've talked about it before, but really, it's worth again emphasizing and talking about, because what I see here, ladies and gentlemen, is just a prime example of creative minds, imaginative minds, being allowed to, just go with whatever comes to mind for them. Just let the creativity run wild. And when they allow that to happen, anything is possible. And I'll be honest with you, even if it's weird or something to people, when I see someone like Michelle, who has the DeviantArt name DesiArt, when I see her over the past couple of years doing a lot of series where the character turns, where the character's main power is pretty much kind of like goo-like. It's slime-like, if you will. But it allows them to shapeshift into whatever or whoever they want to be. To see someone like her, take that, that trope and run with it for a variety of stories is really saying something. I mean, one of her more significant stories that has a lot of plot to it, even for its short run, is the Unlimited story. Because basically it focuses not on a female character, but on a male character who gains clayface abilities. However, in the long run, they have near fatal consequences. Thankfully, they don't, because of the fact that having these abilities, he's allowed to become, puddles of goo, muddy goo, that is, slime, whatever you want to call it. But he's also able to shapeshift into whatever or whoever he wants. And for a majority of the story, he shapeshifts himself into different female characters. One based on the lead character in Ghost in the Shell, and the other one being somebody original. But because he's shapeshifted himself into these two female characters, these two female forms, basically it nearly cost him his existence, because they essentially started to gain their own independence. And as I mentioned before, when I reviewed the series, the reason they gained their own independence is because he fell in love while he was in these forms. And because he fell in love while in these forms, he basically caused these forms to start coming into their own. And that's what nearly cost him, his existence. Thankfully, they realize that they need each other, so they come up with pretty much a solution where all three parties are happy, if you know what I mean. And still get to be a little weird on the side with the creativity. Another series that Michelle does is the Metamorphosized to Malleability series, which she's currently doing. And, this story series has been going on for over 220-something issues, I think, or not 20, or nearly 220 issues, almost there. And obviously she has an end goal in mind. She really does. I mean, to see the evolution of her main character, Briella, go from someone that gained the power, or somehow accidentally gained the powers to where, she was learning them, getting used to them, nearly losing herself in the shape that she would become because of the long duration, to basically now fully mastering her abilities to be able to pretty much not only create real clothing for her fiance Crystal to wear, but to be able to replicate almost to a T an entire living space, furniture and all, is something to really behold and read about. It really is. And, I can't say any more than that, except you need to check it out. You really do. But to see that evolution happen, like I said, it's truly something to behold and read. And you can kind of see that she does have an end goal because, as long as I've been reading it and others have been reading it, we've kind of had this sense that, maybe she's trying to, hint at a certain moment happening, because even though it's been alluded to, hinted at, other creative writers like myself have pretty much, done that, just as one-shots or extensions of previous parts she's done. With those being the exceptions, we've always had this feeling, just the way she's presented it, that Briella's fiancée Crystal would also like to have the same ability. And finally, we kind of got like an acknowledgement, if you will, by Briella of, Crystal, perhaps, wanting that same scenario, but not in the case to where she's like, well, maybe I should, recreate the formula so Crystal can do it and all that. No, her thought was, she wasn't, her thought was, she didn't, basically her thought was that she didn't really know whether Crystal would like it or she wouldn't, or something like that. And I think honestly, with a lot of the Easter eggs and stuff being thrown into the past chapters and everything, that there is no doubt that Crystal in story wants that ability. So if the end goal is not only to get them married, but part of the major wedding gift Briella would have to Crystal is a perfect replication of the formula to allow Crystal the ability so they could really get crazy and creative, if you know what I mean, then so be it. So be it. That would be something to really see how far she's involved with her abilities and everything, but also to be a great happy ending end goal in sight. But what's unique about it too is it also involves other parties as well. One of the parties involved, is trying to help keep Briella and everybody she knows safe and sound. You got this other party that wanted the power and everything for themselves and stuff. And, you get a lot of all these different story elements and plots interwoven, I should say, within, and it makes it a great story to really enjoy, in my opinion. So that's another one that really, really along with the Unlimited one, really helps show how far and imaginative and creative DeviantART's Michelle's mindset can be. But it's not just that one either. Recently, of course, as a lot of you guys have noticed, I did a series of reviews, on what is known as the Melting Mei series. That's Melting, and the name of the character is Mei. That's MEI. And she started this series last year, and what this series actually is her attempt at doing a yearly series, an annual yearly series, which she can look forward to every year, which basically would allow her most of the rest of the year to flesh out ideas for the upcoming continuation. And just like with Briella in Metamorphosized Malleability, the main character of Mei, basically at first, gained these powers accidentally because of her friend's special lotion, her girlfriend's special lotion from her business. which she applied, but had some unusual side effects. But over time, even though she was worried about it and everything, over time she's learned to kind of embrace it, if not master it, and if not enjoy it in very erotic and arousing ways. And then because of that evolution for her character in the first installment, which was last year, the first installment ended with her starting to share this discovery with Zahara, her friend, and the owner of the massage beauty salon called Ultimate Bliss, which was the name given to it. And Zahara, here in the second installment, is more, I guess you could say, receptive of it and getting more creative and stuff with what they can do. And because now both have it, have the ability, yes, they had their erotic, arousing fun, if you know what I mean, as well as they also finally did what we would all expect characters like this to have, if they have the same ability, and that's fused together. They ended up fusing together, and they combined their names into a new name of Mara. And, just went from there. They just went from there, and it's one of those situations to where, it's one of those situations that apparently the longer the lotion works on them to give them this ability, the more creative and mastery they can be with the powers they've gotten. But what's interesting is not just how creative they can get, from a sexual, erotic, arousing intimacy with each other, as well as the fused form, but how creative they can get as well, how creative they can get with the ideas of what these powers are allowing them to do, if you know what I mean. I mean, a bit of spoilers, because at the end of the fourth part of the second installment, as I've mentioned in the review, Mii decides she's going to quit her business. She decides she's going to quit her business, her job. So she gives her 2-week notice because she has a new job in mind that she's going to take. And we find out that new job is kind of a partnership with her girlfriend Zahara at Zahara's massage business, and spa and bath business. But we find out that the job she's taking is she's going to be utilized as the new bath that they offer to the clients for free, which is kind of a restorative. It's kind of like as I mentioned in the review, it's a play on the word retroactive, but it's kind of like restorative, or restorative silk, silk, and basically Mii, like I said, she quits her job to become the bath, the liquid that the clients soak in for free for potentially maybe a half hour. And she basically uses this new position, if you will, that she's in to cipher off a little bit of, as she calls it, sexual energy, because she stimulates the clients into a sexual arousal, if you know what I mean, till they get to a certain point, if you catch my drift. Now, what's interesting about that as well is she's already planning out, like I said, next year's stories, to the point that she's already has the 9th part up and ready to go, and she shared that 9th part as a sneak preview. And just like with the Metamorphosized to Malleability series, now we'll get into some story plot with the introduction of some new challenges. We get the introduction of this Lindsay character, who is pretty much who's pretty much a highfalutin, I'm better than you kind of person, who owns and is the president of one of the largest spa and beauty chains in the region of where Zahara and Miyai live. And she wants to add, or at least partner in a sense, but potentially add Zahara's business to her chain. And Zahara doesn't want anything to do with it. And the only reason Lindsay wants this is because word has gotten out about the new restorative, if you will, retroactive. I'm trying to think of the word retroactive. Restorative soap that they're offering for free. Word has gotten around about it, and Lindsay pretty much is the kind of character that's like, well, if I can't compete against it, then I want to own it. I want a piece of it. And she's not going to take no for an answer, because what she doesn't understand is the bath is an actual person who just happens to have goo-like powers. And she's willing to do whatever it takes, including hiring a character by the name of Elizabeth to infiltrate and try to find out as much information as she can so she could get her hands on this new treatment for herself, for her business, as well as potentially claim ownership of Zahara's business in the long run. So I liked the idea that we're getting a little bit of story development now with these new characters going into next year. But I also like that it shows that some time has passed to where Zahara and Miyai have become so creative in mastery of their goo-like abilities, to where once they have another intimate moment, if you will, at the end of this ninth part, this sneak preview, they get really creative. They get really creative to the point that, after Miyai, as I mentioned in the review, sucks in her friend, after her friend loses her cohesion into her body, she just acts like, and this is how Michelle describes it, as just a placid olive surface of liquid that just ripples on occasions. But then all of a sudden you see this chocolate-like ooze or ravine of water or liquid just cut through the olive liquid, or olive landscape as she calls it, to create new streams of water, new seas and lakes. And Miyai, in response, decides to take a certain upper region of hers and turn it into mountains, which Zahara takes advantage of and bursts through the tippy tops of those mountains, thus turning them into volcanoes. And the end result basically is them having another moment, them kind of calming down for about a half hour, where literally the lips individually sink into the ooze, but then reemerge 30 minutes later to help them merge back into Mara, who decides, maybe they need to rest a bit more. And she basically jumps back into the tub, the band scene, if you will, and melts again. So I love the fact that she's not only allowing the main characters to evolve with their abilities, but now she's going to add some story elements of basically the fact that, you have somebody getting worried about, this treatment that nobody else is offering, that only Zahara's business is offering, and now she wants a piece of it. She wants a piece of it, if not total ownership of it. So it's going to be interesting where it goes from here. I've already given my thoughts in the review yesterday of where I think it could end up going. So that's something to look forward to when it's all said and done. Other stories, of course, are not just on DeviantArt as well. One of the other places I go to is Patreon. Patreon is, home to people like Trouble TRO, Joven16, you name it. And they are very creative in what they do. Very creative. For example, Trouble TRO recently, and I did a review on this, recently wrapped up his collab with Mr. Internet Man called Agent Pink, Beldrum's Revenge, both 1 and 2, but mostly part 2, which served as more of a epilogue where his characters of Agent Pink, Betty, and Veronica Monica from Mr. Internet Man, basically got very intimate to each other, to the point that it ended with them turning into goo and literally becoming nothing but melted puddles on a bed. But that wasn't the end of it, because they added another character to the mix who also joined in the fun, became goo herself. And that character was Emily, thus connecting the fact that the Pink Benefits story that he's currently doing as well, and he'll probably go back to real soon, is an origin story of how the characters Emily and Betty got their powers, because Agent Pink takes place afterwards. So he's got that. So he just finished on that. He's probably on the verge of going back to Pink Benefits soon. But he's also working on some other stories. Like one that he's working on right now is called Master PC Anything You Want, or Anything You Want It. It's basically called Anything You Want to Be. It's basically essentially that title. It's called Master PC Anything You Want to Be. Or you could be anything, or be anything you want, kind of deal. And it focuses on this female character who gets this message of, on the PC, along with legit finances into her bank, to where now she could basically be anything she wants, anybody or anything she wants. And at first she doesn't believe it, but then she thinks about, okay, well, this money's legit, it's not a fraud deal. Let's see what this is. Because she does get like a bit of a tingling feeling off her, like a shock. And then she notices that what she was told about is true. Now she has the ability to shapeshift into whoever she wants to be. And she's been doing that. She's been turning herself into different women around the workplace, which is allowing her to get some action, if you know what I mean. And now, recently, she's turned herself into a version of a newscaster. And she pretty much figures, I should have some fun with myself before I go to bed. And since she's in the urge of something more of the man's lower region, she wonders to herself, could I actually shapeshift more than just my appearance? And then that's when she does something with her fingers, which pretty much I'm going to leave up to your own imagination. But yeah, it's stories like that that really get my attention and everything, as well as everybody else's attention, because of how creative, and imaginative these stories, will go with the distance with the unlimited distance they are given. It's really cool to see. But he's not the only one. We also have Jovan16, who is doing the Nano Dash Shift, taking a break from that, because I think they pretty much, in my opinion, put themselves into a corner where they got to wonder, okay, where do I go from here? So we'll find out what they do next from that. And then he's also currently doing some other stories. One of them is called Amanda and Nicole. And right now, where it's two friends who have gained the powers of shapeshifting to be able to become anybody or maybe anything they want. And right now, the recent chapter has them pretty much together again, getting ready to get ready to get on with each other, if you know what I mean, but unaware of it. They are unaware, of what was about to happen and everything. Between them, because they don't know that, the friends, Amanda and Nicole, are with each other again, because they think they're totally different people. He's working on that. Another story he's doing is called Side Effects, where it's a guy that's gained the powers through, I guess, alien abduction or something, gained the powers to become, of a shapeshifter, and he's mostly having fun right now, becoming any female he wants to become. But I think there's going to be more than that in the long run. So we'll see what happens there. But I bring all these up. And then, of course, you've got the fan fictions, of the adult kind that I've mentioned before, with already established characters like Sonic characters like Tails. And Tails always being like the main focus of every female's desire because of certain privileges he has, if you know what I mean. and how far they go with that. Again, it shows you, again, how creative in the long run a lot of these stories are. But one question a lot of people have, and maybe I will timestamp this at 25 minutes, or at least wherever it's going to be, 25 minutes, 20 seconds. One question a lot of people have is, why do some of the stories that you mentioned always end up having shape-shifting females, or females that gain goo-like powers and stuff like that? Well, it's because, in my opinion, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, it's because if you look at it legitimately, the female mind is more creative than the male mind. And again, I say that with all due respect, no offense, but it's a legitimate fact that the female mind is more creative than the male mind. I mean, why do you think a lot of people describe in stories, if not in descriptive ways, that certain females can have a mischievous side to them, and an honorary mischievous side to them? It's because of the fact that basically, that female is known to be very, even if it's very mischievously or sneaky, is known to find creative ways to have fun. Find some creative ways to have fun, do some, crazy things and stuff, that you wouldn't expect them to do. But yet they find ways to do them, and they find ways to do them in creative ways that even the male mind wouldn't even be able to perceive. Even if it's something that the male mind eventually could be like, oh, well, that's easy to replicate and everything later on. But yeah, that is why female characters are always chosen to get these kind of powers. Whether it's to be, goo girls, whether it's to be, female shapeshifters that could use the power of shapeshifting to become goo and melt and all that. The reason they're giving it is because of that, that legitimate saying of the female mind being more creative and mischievous than the males. And again, I say that with all due respect, no offense. But that's why they're always chosen as the default gender, the default character to be given these abilities. Once in a while, like I mentioned earlier with the Unlimited series, a male character will get these abilities. But what does and even with side effects, I should say, with those two stories, a male character will get these kind of abilities. But what is always the one first thing they do, or at least one of the first things they shapeshift into? What is one of the first things they shapeshift into? Easy for me to say. Well, I'll tell you what one of the first things is. Female. And why? Because basically, as described in another story series I read called What Dreams May Become by Grape Athenia, once a male with shapeshifting powers turns into a female, the mindset of a female will start to be very influential. Thus, the female mind not only will become influential with the male mind, but it will give off the thoughts, the thoughts and the mindset of the female. And one of those mindsets is creativity and mischievousness, which is why, again, you see the male shapeshifter always taking on the female form first, because they know, hey, if I become female, maybe I can get influenced by the mischievous creative side that they have. And again, I say that with all due respect, no offense. To get back to what I was saying, this is why the female characters or gender is always chosen as the default, because of the creativity, the mischievousness, and what they could do or what they can come up with and get into. So, in the long run, that's what you get. That's what you get when the female gender or character is chosen to be in that role, in my opinion. But yeah, long story short, guys, if there's one thing I take away from reading a lot of these stories, whether they involve, if not do mostly involve female shapeshifters with occasional male shapeshifter here and there, or female characters gaining the power of goo girls, slime girls, that allow them to shapeshift, if not mostly melt into puddles and merge and fuse and all that. If there's one thing I take away from it is, there is no limitation, in my opinion. There is no limitation whatsoever to how far the imagination can go when it comes to creativity. There is no limitation, in my opinion. None whatsoever. And I'm glad about that. I am absolutely glad about that. And I hope that Hollywood, in the long run, the streaming services out there that want a lot of original programming, I hope in the long run they take a look at these kind of fictional stories that regular people like me are doing and start to apply some inspiration from those into some projects of their own in the future. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Check me out at my Teespring store. Also check me out at my various locations for my podcast, except for Pandora, which is BW Rose's Discussions. Also, check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2 to help support me there. Also, check me out at VENMO at BW Roses for content you can't get here on YouTube due to copyright reasons. Also, check me out at Cash App at BW Roses98. At patreon.com/BW Roses, if you will, for content you can't get anywhere except there for $1 or $3 tier. Also check me out at DeviantART.com/BVW1979 and at fanfiction.net/Brian.Walmer.1, that's numeral 1, for stories and stuff you can get there. And until next time, guys, like I said, let me know what your thoughts are down below. And super thanks will be enabled when this is done. And until then, I will talk to y'all later. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on this whole thing. And I am out.